So today's topic, we are going to be discussing 4 different trauma responses. This is very important because if we can identify reasons why we have certain triggers and where certain things are coming from, then we can learn different ways to cope with it and fix it.
Tell me, am I dreaming? How the hell you looking so fly? I just got a meaning when I looked at you today. I got problems, baby, and I need you to save me. Yep.
Hi, welcome back to my channel, T to the Y to the M to the A or A. If you are here for the first time, nice to digitally meet you. And if you are returning, thank you for coming back and just viewing this content. It is very much appreciated. Gratitude. So today's topic, we are going to be discussing 4 different trauma responses. This is very important because if we can identify reasons why we have certain triggers and where certain things are coming from, then we can learn different ways to cope with it and fix it. So I just wanted to speak on this topic because it's very important and dear to me, and I just know it can help somebody. The first type of trauma response is flight. When someone is dealing with the flight response, they tend to be a workaholic, an overthinker, deal with anxiety, depression, maybe OCD and panic. They have a difficulty sitting still and they tend to be a perfectionist. So even though this person may be successful, they are still dealing with different traumas that may have came along in their childhood, even in adulthood. Always never sitting still and thinking, you're not worthy of taking a nap. You always have to do this thing. You have to be moving. You have to be doing something. That's a trauma response. The person is trying to cope with something that happened. And if you can identify that this is a response to something that may have happened, then maybe we need to, turn around and do some shadow work to figure out what's going on that makes me feel like, hey, I'm not worthy of a nap. Hey, I'm not worthy of sitting still. Hey, everything doesn't need to be perfect. Life isn't perfect. Sometimes we just need to just do these things, but you don't always have to be perfect at everything that you do. The next trauma response is fight. I know you heard is either fight or flight, even though it's for a trauma response. I know you heard this one, the typical saying of fight or flight. Fight has to deal with having anger outbursts, being controlling, being the bully, having explosive behavior, or sometimes having narcissistic tendencies. A narcissistic person is when a person has excessive tendencies to just worry about oneself. Granted, we hear the saying that a lot of people may have a few tendencies of being narcissistic, but when you are just overly into yourself, your looks and this and that is me without a care in the world anybody else, then you tend to be a narcissistic person. So once again, the trauma response of fight has to do with just being kind of mean. And the person may have dealt with trauma when they were a child, and now this is the only way they know to deal with their situation now, and is having these anger outbursts. You don't always have to fight because a situation comes your way. There are different ways to handle it. I know people tend to say, woe is me, and stuff didn't happen to me, but everybody's response is not the same. There's a typical saying of life is 10% of what happens and 90% of how you respond to it. And it does not make it right or anything that may happen to you and whatever trauma you went through. But just knowing and being able to identify that fight is another trauma response. So the first one we named, we have fight. And then the second one we have is flight. So now the third one we're going to go into is the third response tends to be freeze. Freeze is when a person has a difficulty making decisions. This falls into being another trauma response. When you have a difficulty making decisions, you tend to stay stagnant in life by not moving. So that tends to be a bad thing, because if you can't make a decision for yourself, then you have other people leading your life and telling you what you need to do and how you need to do it. And we came here as individuals with our own souls and our own bodies, not for people to constantly keep dictating what we're supposed to do every step of the way in our life. So other signs of a freeze trauma response is you're dealing with being stuck, you have disassociation with people, you tend to isolate yourself and also feel numb. You are numb to the BS, which is kind of not bad. You are numb to people in a relationship. You are numb to a lot of things, and sometimes you may have several of these different traits and these different types of trauma responses. So you may be a person who has freeze, and then you may also fight and whip somebody's butt, and at the same time you may also have a flight response and just be a workaholic. Once again, we're not saying that any of these trauma responses are right or wrong. We're just simply identifying what is. So our fourth trauma response is the fawn personality. FAWN, fawn personality. The fawn trauma response is a person who's constantly a people pleaser. The people pleaser person tends to lack identity. They don't have identity for themselves because they're constantly taking on the personality of everybody else. What do you want me to do? How can I make you happy? And what do you want me to do? How can I make you happy? So the fine person is a people pleaser. They lack their own personal identification. They have no boundaries. They're constantly overwhelmed. And they are codependent on other people. Because they have a lack of identity, they are codependent on other people. What do you want to do? How do you want it? They tend to copy everything else that somebody else does, but you have yet to see what do they want to do for themselves. How do you want to live? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to, like, who are you? So once again, we have to decide between whether this is a good or bad thing, how we want to approach it. But we just know that if we have some of these trauma responses, then we know that we can counteract it in a different type of way to add an even balance to deal with these responses that we tend to have because of the drama that may have happened or trauma that may have happened in our childhoods and our adulthoods, being in the wrong type of relationship. So I just hope this information was informative. It can help you out so that you can better understand where certain personalities and responses come from. If this does not apply to you, please let it fly, or share it with somebody where you think this information may be informative. Share it on your page. Just put it out there so other people know, so they're aware of what's going on in their life. Stuff like this that tends to happen, we have certain things called shadow work. If you look up a shadow work journal, this is where a lot of these trauma responses come out. You can see, like, why do I operate this way? Why do I think this way? Why does this make me cry? Why does this thing trigger me? Doing a shadow work, maybe I could find one and link it down below, but doing a shadow work book, this is what I had to do myself. I had to do a shadow work journey to help to just find out what little ticks and why does certain things operate the way that it does, because everybody has problems. Nobody on this earth is perfect. We came here for the human experience. We are a soul inside this temple, and we came here for the human experience, so we're going to have problems. So we're all here trying to elevate to the next level. But I hope this video helps. Until next time, subscribe down below, and I'll see you. Bye.